1. Backstory. Around 16 or 17, my cousin, we'll call him Chris, and I were the only ones of our large Hispanic family who broke free of religion and became open atheists. Needless to say, this wasn't taken very well by the rest of the family, but they eventually stopped pushing because we were very respectful to religion in general and would still attend church. I've since moved far away from home because of my career and only go back to the Bible Belt once or twice a year to visit. Fast forward 10 years. About 4 months ago, Chris calls me up and says he needs a place to stay in between jobs. Obviously, I was more than happy to have him stay with me. The first few weeks, everything was great. Neither of us had seemed to change much, and everything was exactly like when we were younger. He had mentioned that he found God again and was no longer an atheist. I tell him I still don't believe, but it was no big deal. I respect his religion and will not push my views on him, and I hope he shows me the same respect in return. He agreed. About 2 months gone by, and things were still good. Up until this point, he had only inquired about my views a couple of times. Simple questions like if I had read the Bible since we were kids, or he would relate some situation to a Bible verse. I would brush this aside because I can appreciate and understand it comes from a place of love. 3 weeks ago, we were drinking, and he reveals that he's part of some special Catholic section. That ultimately sounds like some cult to me. And becomes very, very pushy about how my soul is damned, Jesus loves me, and I should pray to some angel, and that I need to embrace this and that. It was all very buzzkill. The final straw was when I was playing PS4 and he walks up and puts his fucking cross on my forehead and begins praying. What the fuck? I was furious. I told him he had a week to pack his things and leave. 4 or 5 days pass, and we don't really talk much. And before he leaves, I tell him that I'd like to take him to dinner, because despite what happened, he's family and I love him. We go out and have a very nice dinner, have a few drinks, and catch an Uber back to the house. But once we get home, we keep on drinking. The fuck up. He eventually starts up with his religious stuff again, but really pushing it this time. I'm not having it, and I decide to be an asshole and get creative. I tell him the reason I cannot buy what he's selling. I intentionally change the tone of my voice slightly, and I say that his God is a lie, and that there is only one true God, Mephisto, the Lord of Hatred. His eyes got really wide, and he seemed extremely confused. In my drunken stupor, I decided to keep it going. I reveal to him that I am not the cousin he grew up with. He needs to embrace the hate in his heart in order to truly find happiness. That this world is significantly more comfortable than where I'm from. And when the time is right, I will reveal myself to the world. He says some prayers and is touching my forehead. My drunk dumbass self decides to say, "The storms of hate will engulf the world in the morrow, and all will be under my shadow." I had watched the news earlier, so I knew it was going to be heavy thunderstorms in the morning. To put some icing on the cake, I laid down on my floor and just went to sleep right there in the living room. I woke up in the morning extremely hungover. I knew what I did was wrong and totally felt bad about it. I wanted to apologize, but when I looked in the room he was staying in, he had packed his things and left the house. I tried calling him, but he blocked my number and all social media. He started talking to my parents, siblings, aunt, uncle, and everyone else apparently, because all throughout the week I've gotten text message and voicemails about how I needed to go to church now and accept Jesus. This kind of annoyed me, but decided to come clean about what happened to anyone who contacted me. My dad, luckily, has become a closet atheist and has really only told me about it. He kind of laughed at the scenario and said Chris shouldn't have disrespected me and pushed his beliefs in my home. Yesterday I was able to get a hold of Chris and explain the whole situation, how I felt about him being pushy and that I was truly sorry for what happened. I took a joke way too far. He told me that he loves me, but I'm not the cousin he grew up with. I'm a vessel for a demon he had never heard before, Mephisto, and he has told everyone he could to stay away from me. 2. So a job comes in stating that there's a lady in the park pushing her trolley full of pot plants around. The informant tells the dispatcher that this lady is shouting, acting in a drunken manner, and is scaring children in the park. Mothers are concerned, so police have been called. This is where I enter the picture. I arrive at the park and locate this female. Sure enough, she's heavily intoxicated and pushing her trolley full of potted plants. Potted ordinary foliage, not marijuana, up from the park. I talk to her, she provides details, and I discover she only lives 200 meters up the road. Now, the best way to deal with incidents like this is prevention. I think to myself that I'll wrap this up nicely, give her a hand pushing her potted plants home. This way she is no longer disturbing anyone and she also gets home safely. So I push this rather heavy trolley up the hill while chatting away to her. Nothing out of the ordinary, as I like meeting and getting to know new people. Anyways, we get to her house and I begin helping her unload the potted plants by moving them to her wooden deck on the second floor. There were a lot, so I thought I'd help. Once done, she thanked me and I went on my way. I hopped into my patrol car, contacted the dispatcher, and told them that they could close the job as it had been resolved and required no further police action. I started driving down the road, that feeling of satisfaction washing over me like I had made a real difference, that I had found an alternative solution to the usual locking someone up for disorderly behavior. Anyways, I'm driving and someone waves me down. I'm thinking I'm about to be given another job when the bystander tells me a drunken lady came along with her shopping trolley and stole my potted plants. Oh shit. A very embarrassing exchange over the radio, asking the dispatcher to reopen the job to code as theft. I also had to retrieve the potted plants and return to the rightful owners. Edit. Since this is getting a little more popular than expected, I thought I'd share some more on this story, so you'll get a complete picture. Sadly, this lady who I helped get home passed away not long after this incident. She was also dealt a rather rough hand in life, and as a result lived a life of substance abuse and tragically passed away alone. She had a massive effect on me as an officer, because even though she was one of our repeat offenders, she taught me that sometimes all anyone needs is a little kindness and compassion. For that lesson, I am really grateful to her. I hope she's somewhere better. 3. So I'm presently interning at a biological research laboratory, where a chemical carcinogen, ethidium bromide, is used in analyzing DNA by running them on a gel, oversimplified, but that's the gist. This incident happened about 2 weeks ago, but just got around to writing about it. I start off by having a perfectly hectic morning, setting experiment after another, and then have to cast a DNA analysis gel, for which you need to add an extremely small amount of the aforementioned chemical carcinogen, around 6 microliter or so. Keep in mind that this chemical is a known carcinogen, so much so that it has a separate workstation and set of equipment dedicated to be used for any purpose involving ethidium bromide. Even has a separate biohazard bin, disparate from the usual biohaz bins for waste gloves, tissues, and even tips and tubes that have resided on the ethidium bromide station. So I pick up this small cough syrup-sized bottle containing neat, undiluted ethidium bromide, open the bottle cap, and I'm just about to insert my pipette tip into this evil, deep maroon-colored chemical, when lo, with infuriating grace, this bottle glides unfazed despite intense recruitment of muscles hitherto undiscovered in my fingers, and slips right out of my fingers. The next few seconds are straight out of Inception when the van hits the barricade on the bridge. Time slows down and my eyes are tracking speed, trajectory, and estimated crash site, while my feet, about 5 centimeters from the estimated crash site, are simultaneously fighting the instinct to break the fall, an instinct that has saved many electronic devices, and preparing to fire all thrusters in a direction that is both conducive to their benignity as well as the rest of my body's, lest I crash face first into the ethidium bromide wreckage. By this time the bottle makes contact with the ground and the first wave of rogue, previously incarcerated ethidium bromide drops now jump out to taste their freedom, and by estimated trajectory some of my big toe, my right foot, previously held in dichotomy upon being informed of its inbound uninvited guests, decides that springing away from the bottle is definitely a better course of action, just in time, might I add, to avoid the maroon rain. As my right foot finds the ground and stabilizes, bipedal evolution chipped in to remind me of the other foot, and just as soon as my eyes made visual contact with it, I knew I was too late. Smaller, viscous explorer droplets had seemingly separated from the larger mother drop, and conveniently decided to colonize the ectoderm that did not seem to be attached to a moving object. They plopped down past my slippers. In your face just contorted incredulity. Please check notes for clarification. On several small spots on the side of my foot, as well as a tiny ploppet on my left foot's big toe. Little shit. The rest of the original colonizers rained down in a small 50-centimeter radius, mostly in my direction. South-southeast, from the crash site. I'm happy to report that my right foot had successfully made the getaway. Uncannily, the bottle did not throw out a second wave, but literally stood on its bottom, the right way up. But aside that, in my head, panic kicked in, and thoughts of amputation, don't know why, surged in my head. Shaky legs but steady voice, I immediately informed the most proximate-most member of my lab, who happened to be standing 300 centimeters away from the original crash site, and later called both housekeeping, because cleaning that spot now requires a special protocol, and wastewater and cloth cannot be disposed in the normal way, and the lab head. Of course, I also had to immediately douse and thoroughly clean the area of skin that made contact with ethidium bromide. Thankfully, none of the ethidium bromide got on my clothes and none on any important equipment. We set up cordon around the area and liberally doused the area with ethanol, in the least to dilute the ethidium bromide. The footwear we wore and potentially trampled in ethidium bromide with was disposed in the ethidium bromide biohazard bin. The side wall of the ethidium bromide station, a bedside table type of furniture, was scrubbed 3 times separately, I think. The dude who worked near the ethidium bromide station had to temporarily work out of another space, and I got snake eyes for that until the weekend. Also, fortunately, the outermost layer of skin is entirely dead, and ethidium bromide has not been shown to seep into the dermis, so I'll live, I think. Also not fired, if you're wondering. But yeah, was rattled up for the rest of the day, and had to calm the fuck down later in the evening when the entire experience kicked in over a cup of juice. Some later analysis, mostly self-motivated, revealed that the ethidium bromide bottle had a layer of solid agarose gel around it. The DNA gel. Some later analysis, mostly self-motivated, revealed that the ethidium bromide bottle had a layer of solid agarose gel around it, the DNA gel, which might have conferred its lubricative properties upon the bottle. Hypothesis is some dud left the ethidium bromide bottle on the station while his gel leaked, and didn't bother cleaning it up before or after it solidified. The place still glows with dim maliciousness in the night under a UV torch, reminiscent of the slippery turn of events that elapsed that one day. Note, recommended dress code is either shoes or slippers, yes, not sandals. Basic idea, if something caustic drops on your foot, you're either protected enough or can kick off the footwear and treat it rapidly. Also slippers, cause I had a lot of cell culture work that day, so I would have had to constantly keep tying, retying and untying shoes every time I went to the tissue culture facility. Different and specific footwear inside, hence the slippers. 4. Time, Friday night, 10 p.m. Location, my university. I have been studying all week long for that huge accounting exam that I have this following Saturday, and I'm really putting all my concentration and focus on those 1,000 different in and out accounts. Kinda relevant for later, maybe an excuse for my stupidity, I don't know. So as I have a hard time concentrating at home, and it was too late to catch a train to study on one of those, I was at my university solving older exams and noting down some important theory key points. The uni was slowly emptying, and I started to see less and less people. No problem, I mean it's Friday, and people usually head home or to some party at that time. Meanwhile, I'm still in that classroom, reading liabilities this, accruals that, and wrapping my head around left-right account balances. At some point, someone from the cleaning staff enters the room and starts emptying the trash cans and shutting down the projector. I was sitting all the way in the corner, and the woman kinda gave me a signal that until she gets to my row, I can finish what I'm doing. I guess, I don't know to be honest. So she gets to my row and asks me nicely that she needs to lock the room and that if I want, I can head upstairs because they will do those rooms at the end, and I might get some few minutes out of it. Soon after, I am in some kind of study room, small room with one big table, kinda like a meeting room, continuing my intensive studying. Yeah, believe it or not, Reddit on my phone had gotten very little attention that week. A few minutes later, a weird bell sound comes from the little speaker in the room. Not the usual class over bell, but something similar. Yeah, everyone browsing RTIFU is like, oh, that's where it begins. I don't care. Again, depreciation this and inventory that. I am fairly sure I have turned into some kind of accounting software at that point. The same woman that told me to head upstairs before enters the room and tells me very nicely that she thinks it's time to leave. I start packing my stuff and I head downstairs again. One of the exits is downstairs. Just before leaving the building, I have the bright idea to check one last time if there isn't a room left for me to study. Because I'm quite sure that as soon as I enter my apartment, I will straight drop dead on my bed. And I really need to study more. I remember this stairwell that is hidden, not really, but it's not super obvious, behind a normal door that makes it look like there is a normal classroom behind it. But you can access more classrooms through that stairwell. I press down the handle and insert that Andy Dwyer gif here. You know, the "oh shit, what up, yes" thing. Great, the stairwell hasn't been locked, so I check some of the rooms that are connected to that stairwell, and to my disappointment, they are all locked. I go up the stairs to check those rooms, and close too. Ah, shit. Well, it was worth an attempt. A bit bummed, I decide to finally go home in the end, so I head downstairs again to the door where I came in. I press the handle down, and... locked. Yeah, if you hadn't figured out what was coming, buddy, I have bad news for you. No big deal, it's a stairwell, and there's also an access to the main building where I was just before. Guess what? Locked too. Dramatic music starts playing. Dolly zoom on the protagonist's face. Sweat starts running down the side of his face. I forgot to note that our uni was built in the architectural style of brutalism, aka concrete everything and make it look like a jail. So I am in that narrow stairwell locked between two floors in one of the side wings of the uni. I figure out that while I was checking the other rooms, someone saw that one door wasn't locked and simply locked it. Friendly reminder, it's like 11 PM Friday night, and I got an exam tomorrow. Adding to that, my phone was slowly running out of battery. Obviously, I mean, yeah, what did I expect? Now, I need to explain something that is key to the rest of this story, but probably totally unknown to most of you. There is a popular app in the German-speaking uni community called Yodel, which is basically a Reddit Lite with geolocation. People can post short 2-sentence text posts or images directly taken, like not from your library, and everyone in the area can read it and upvote it or downvote it. The whole thing is totally anonymous, and it is basically the social media app of the uni. After a while, I decide to post a picture of the stairwell and saying that I'm trapped at uni. I comment my own post with a bunch of other pictures showing where I am. Now, usually Yodel posts get around 5 to 10 upvotes, and if you manage to post something creative, you reach 60 to 80 upvotes. My post reached 150 upvotes in less than 20 minutes. Yeah, I was still locked in that stairwell. The whole thing literally blew up, and every 5 seconds comments were posted asking how the fuck that happened, and if they needed to call the cops, etc, etc. So I was reading the comments, battery slowly running out, like arriving at 3%, trying to find a useful advice. I'm going to keep it simple. Commenter number 5 shall become my salvation. He had commented since the beginning, that's why number 5, and had managed to provide me with the 24/7 emergency number of the uni facilities. Battery is about to run out and I don't know if it's going to last for the phone call. I make a deal with him. If I don't comment that I made it out in exactly 1 hour, he shall call the cops to get me the fuck out of there. Clock starts ticking, 59:59 until the arrival of cops. I manage to call the number, and after being asked several times if I'm serious and if I'm not joking, remember it's Friday night, drunk students are the opposite of a rarity right now. I assure them that I'm very serious and that my battery is about to run out. I need them ASAP. Guy on the phone audibly is pissed, but, well, it's his job. He says he is on his way. Now it's not too exciting. I didn't jump out of the window because the building randomly started to burn and break my legs, and I don't know what the hell. Dude showed up, told me I'm a retard and to get the fuck out of his sight now. Thanks, I guess. But the stress wasn't over. My phone had died and I needed to comment that I am safe before number 5 and the whole Yodel community calls the cops, which would have legal consequences for me if I wasn't there. I don't live that close to the uni, but I should make it in time. I get home, make it in time, charge my phone, post that I am safe 50 minutes after the initial deal with number 5, and head to bed reading the hundreds of comments that were posted while I was without battery. End of the story, right? Not really. So today the uni magazine, which is surprisingly good to be honest, and also read and distributed in the city, is published. It is only published 4 times a year, so it's a bigger thing, and people are genuinely excited to read it. I picked one up and just start going through it. I get distracted and don't think about it anymore until someone shows me a whole page article thing about some idiot getting trapped at uni last week and how the Yodel community saved him. Fuck. It's me! So everyone started speculating who they think it might be, and if they know who it was, and. They started calling me a legend that should get his bachelor degree without examination. I wish. And also the biggest retard in this uni, and how the fuck am I able to function in everyday life? Yeah, I ask myself that too occasionally. Of course, the whole gossiping was ported to Yodel too, where it is the top topic of the day already. Meanwhile, the original post I made is heading to break Yodel upvote records. My main goal right now is to keep my identity as secret as possible, or I might get crowned king, and then lynched like a French royal in the 18th century. 5. This happened to me a while back when I was about 10 years old, but the embarrassment still haunts me to this day. Around this time, little me had been encouraged by my parents to develop a healthy interest in science. Doing experiments like mixing vinegar and baking soda in the kitchen, other harmless things under parental supervision. I was convinced that I was going to become a great scientist when I grew up. And all that I needed was a great experiment to show people I was up for it. I didn't have any ideas for a solid career-making experiment until shortly after Easter, where I had been on an egg hunt. I grabbed a plastic egg, with some cheesy egg-shaped gum inside of it, and that was when my Nobel Prize-worthy idea came to me. I would see what happened when gum was heated up. Truly, I was a scientific prophet of my time. I wrote down my hypothesis in some composition notebook and took to work, meticulously laying out and inventorying the entire experiment. The plan was flawless, except for one thing. I had to find the means to heat up the gum. Would I use the oven, the microwave? No, I would get caught by my parents for using those. This was something I had to do myself. Conveniently, I had this cool neon lava lamp in my room that I had won in some arcade for a ridiculous amount of tokens. I was very proud of it. You could take the top off the lamp to expose the hot bulb below, so my plan was to place half the plastic egg with gum inside, and then record the results, of course being home alone. The plan started off without a hitch. I put the egg on the lamp, observed it for about 5 minutes, nothing was happening. Most boring experiment ever, 0 out of 10. I grabbed a book off my shelf, ran downstairs. I figured I'd come back in about 5 more minutes and turn it off if nothing more had happened. I guess it must have been a really good book because it was around half an hour later when I went back upstairs. I opened the door. Smoke came pouring out. Oh. So apparently my room was now a World War II battlefield, as all you could hear was the ear-ringing gunshot-esque popping sounds booming from the lamp. I immediately ran to it to find out what happened. And it was a sorry sight to see. The plastic of the egg had literally melted and fused with the white-hot bulb. The gum was burnt and bubbling furiously like some sort of Easter-themed witch's cauldron of broken childhood dreams. In a panic, I knocked the now deformed egg off the lamp, the bulb proceeding to burst into flames. This is the point where most sane children would go to get help or call their parents, 911, somebody who knows how to put out a small but potentially life-threatening blaze. Nope. I was already in too deep. My parents couldn't find out now. Full of common sense, I stumbled to the bathroom, grabbed a handful of about 20 washcloths, doused them in sink water, and threw them directly on top of the lamp's now mini reenactment of the Chicago fire. The popping sound was replaced by a demonic hissing of 1,000 snakes. Presumably the lamp cooling off. I finally had the sense to unplug it. Burned my hand by touching the cord, but it wasn't terrible and could be hidden easily. As the hissing sound began fading away, I numbly stood there a bit before realizing that my parents would be back very, very soon.
Conceal the evidence!
Everything on my desk, papers, books, toys, was completely soaked from the newly created Mount washcloth, so I had to awkwardly hide the now ruined items in a towel so they could dry off. There was also the problem of the smoke-filled room. I opened the window and most of it seemed to go away, but my room still stank like a s'more cooking gone wrong, and a bit of the smoke hung there like a mist. My solution? Spray an entire bottle of perfume throughout the room. This did not really improve the situation, and it only made my room even smellier, like an entire Bath and Body Works had caught fire. My genius, brilliant brain had another plan. I would catch the smoke particles in the air by swinging around a shirt. This was how my parents came back from what was probably a lovely date to a screeching smoke detector, along with a child frantically swinging a shirt over their head with the vigor of a cowboy lassoing some poor animal in the Wild West. I half-assed a lie that the perfume had set off the smoke detector, and that I was sorry. A few weeks later I handed in my very broken, burnt, gum-covered lava lamp, claiming that the bulb burnt itself off. I seriously thought they had bought the lie, until I was around 13 and asked for another lava lamp. My mother looked me dead in the eyes. After what you did to the last one? Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 67. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. 'Tis the weekend, so I'm going to keep this short. I'm going to attempt to make a vegan mac and cheese later. Made it before, but it's been a while, so we'll see if I've lost my touch. I just want to wish you all a nice weekend. If you're working, hope it goes quickly for you, and hope your next day off comes soon. With that being said, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.